Hi everybody. I'm going to make an addendum to a video that I've already made on how to make one of these protective masks. This one is cotton and it has two sides. It has two layers of fabric. I have put a pipe cleaner in here for the nose wire so that your glasses don't fog up. And I have this little cord elastic in the ears, or for the ears. I have sort of discovered that not everybody was getting the, and I probably didn't make it clear enough, but not everybody was getting the pattern and how to cut the piece of material out for this. So I want to show you what I did. Here's the pattern, and I'm going to show you how to cut it out without having a pattern, just with having nothing but the instructions and the measurements. And I'll show you exactly what to do because it's really not difficult. But if this is the first time you're doing it, it probably doesn't even make any sense to you. So I took a regular piece of 8.5 by 11. Our little pattern is 10.5 inches from this end to this end. So we're going to start with a rectangle. So we're going to measure 10.5 inches. I'll go down from this end. There. I sure hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay, good. Okay. So 10.5 inches, and I'm going by, on this board, the numbers are up here so I can see them. So this is just an average adult size. So 10.5 inches is going to be 1/2 inch from this end. So I'm just gonna, the instructions on the other video say just start out with a 10.5 by 7 1/8 rectangle. Okay, so now we have 10.5 inches from here to here. Now the width, we need to make that 7, and you can make it 7 1/4, you can make it 7 1/8. I just happen to make mine 7 1/8. And that, even for me, and I'm kind of I'm average adult, but I'd say I'm on the small side. So 7 1/4 is, 1/8 is going to be right about there. So let's draw our line right there. And I'll square it up on these little squares on this mat because it is important for your stuff to be square, otherwise it isn't gonna it won't fold right. You want it to be fairly precise. Okay, so here's our rectangle between, so here's 7.125 inches from here to here, and then from here to here is 10.5 inches. Okay, all right, so let's cut that out. I'm just gonna use my rotary cutter. And do this. Now, this rectangle is probably not what gave everybody the problem. What really probably gave them heck was the angles, because I'd say, well, now you need 45-degree angles at each corner. Okay. You can also use this mat for your 45-degree angles because it has marking on here at 45. If you are a beginning sewer and you may not have one of these mats, You can just use one of these regular old protractors that you used in school, and you line up your corner or your point of origin at this little, where these crosshairs are, and then you measure over to 45 degrees. So you can do it that way. So the next instruction says to center 6 inches over here and here, and then to center 2 1/4 inches on the end. Okay, so how do we center anything? We're going to fold it in half and find our middle. Okay, this is so easy. You are going to just be pretty happy about this. Okay, I don't know if you can see that crease. So there's the middle point. Let me make a little line. I made that other line and now it's interfering with this line. So here's our center, and if you want to measure, if you're going to center 6 inches on this side, if you put that center down on one of these lines, or if you even put it on a ruler, say your six inches is right there, your middle is going to be 3, so put your 3 on this center mark, and you'll have this mark, and down here at 6 inches you'll have that mark. Now you can do the same thing on the other side. Mark here and here. Okay, so here's our mark where our angle is going to begin on this side. So we're at this point right here where we're making this line, where we just did this line right here. So if you're going to center 6 inches, that's it right there. So between here and here. Okay. So now the rest of the instructions say to center 2 1/4 inches on this end. Okay, so what do we do then? We're going to fold this thing. Let's do it to the outside this time. We're going to fold it in half the other way. Let's see if I can make corners meet up. Okay. Okay, so there's our little, I probably should have done this one that way too. So here's our fold going right along here. Here's the center of that fold. So we want to center 2 1/4. So that means 1 1/8 is where we're going to on our ruler. Let's turn it around. 1 1/8, and we're going to put that on that mark. And we're going to make a mark right there, and then we're going to come down here at 2 1/4 and make a mark. So here, between here and here, we have 2 1/4 inches. You can just measure that just to make sure. So there it is right there, 2 1/4 centered. And then over here, we could mark this too, just to make it clear enough to show up on the camera. So here's centered 2 1/4, here's centered 6. All right, so we need to get this mark down here. So we'll put a little mark at our center, put our ruler down and do 1 1/8, because that's half of 2 1/4. So we'll put that there, put that there, and then we have, here's our 2, there's our 2 1/4 centered right here. Okay? All right. So you can roughly do this. It doesn't have to be exactly 45 degrees, but it can be, and that's a place to start. So I'm going to start right there, measure this, so that is 45 degrees right there. So that line is 45 degrees. If it isn't exactly 45, don't worry about it. In fact, you don't even have to use a protractor. You can if you want to, but if you center 2¼ inches here and 6 inches here, and just draw a line between these marks that you've made, you're good. So go around this thing. Now if you want to fold it into quarters and make sure that everything is just mathematically perfect, you can. But basically here's your angle. These two measurements can be anything you want as long as your angles are about 45 degrees and you have enough down here to make the part where your ear is going to go through. Or I mean your elastic for your ears is going to go through right there. Okay? Now if you want to make sure, you can fold this thing into quarters and you can cut all of your angles off at the same time, ensuring that they are all alike. Do you see what I'm doing? Pretty precisely folded because you don't want it to get off. Put your ruler down, line it up on that line, and whack it off with your deal, with your rotary cutter. Okay, so we get rid of those. And so here is your pattern. Ta-da! So that's pretty much like this one. This one I have, and here's another little thing that you can do, I guess, is in order to make this larger, to make a larger size, I made a bigger rectangle, but then I put it back to my original, because you can keep your proportion if you just expand it in the middle. So say you need to make a smaller one. If you need to make one for a child, just take that fold in the center and bring it in however much you think. Just remember, this is gonna fold over about 1/2 inch, and then this one's gonna be folded 1/2 inch. So between here and here is gonna be from cheek to cheek on a child. So you can bring it in and fold it, and then you can also bring it in and fold it going this way, right? So this would be possibly the size you would make for a child. Now, if you're going to make it for somebody bigger than average, you can take this thing and slice it on those folds. And then do it the same way, go in the other direction. I'll just do this one and get it squared up there. And then this one. And then you can spread it apart however far you think it needs to be for a large person. It'll be much larger. So and if you wanted to, you could take another piece of paper and slide it under there and arrange all these pieces and tape them down so that you'd have a pattern for a separate pattern for a large person. I'd recommend making another one because now we've destroyed our little average pattern. So anyway, so that's how to get the pattern, because everybody, I guess YouTube has spoiled us, and almost everything that anybody gives you on instruction for sewing something, if it's a small item like this, they can scan a pattern in there. I didn't do that. I just didn't have a scanner, didn't want to go out when all of this pandemic started to try to get something scanned and then come back and do it. I was just getting this online as quickly as I could. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine now and show you something that, after making hundreds of these for people during this pandemic, or when it first began, I discovered something in the process on how to make this a little more comfortable than the original was. So I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine with me, and I'm going to show you how it's just a small little variation, but I think you'll enjoy it. I think it'll help you, and it looks like we're on a second wave of this virus thing, so it may be helpful, because a lot of you are, I just heard on the internet this morning that some cities are planning on making masks mandatory in public. So it might be helpful, this next part. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine now, so I'll be back in just a minute. Light. I don't want to go through the entire other video again, but I'm just going to take you through really fast parts of it, how to construct this, just in case you have not seen the other video. I hope you do go back and look at the other video, because that really goes into detail about how to do the elastic and all that stuff. So basically, I'm just going to go through the quick parts here. So face to face, I'm going to take these pieces, these two pieces that we just made the pattern for. I'm going to put them right sides together, and we're going to sew them almost all the way around, because we're going to turn them inside out. So I'm going to do 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm doing a pretty small stitch because we're going to turn it. So here we go. Oh, it's probably a scant 1/4 inch that I'm doing. If you are an experienced seamstress, you may be able to watch this video and get the whole thing. So it's up to you if you want to watch the other video. I'll put the link to it in the description down below this video, and you can watch it if you think you need to. If not, that's fine too. So I'm on the side where I started, so here we go. We're gonna leave ourselves about 1.5 inches or something to turn it. Okay, here's this little guy. He's the right sides are sewn together all the way around. It's been pressed flat, and I've got a little place where I turned it right here. I'm going to sew up as I do the top stitching around the entire edge. So this is going to get top stitched, but when I was pressing it, one thing you can do to save yourself some time is to fold the edges over towards the center, being sure that on the corners here you leave yourself enough room to turn that down about 1/2 inch or less. All it needs to do is be able to accommodate whatever size elastic you're using down here. But I don't do those. I just do these just because you're going to top stitch along here too. Okay, I just wanted to show you that I flipped this with this to the inside so that you can see it better. I did have it like this, but I'm doing it like this just so you can see what I'm doing. This is a little easier to see than it's hard to see stuff on this crazy print. Okay, so I have pressed it, I've turned it, pressed it, top stitch around the whole thing. Now I'm going to top stitch along these two edges right here, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I've top stitched on both sides over here and over here. Now we're going to turn this down about a ½ inch or whatever will accommodate the type of elastic you're using. And in the other video I have an entire section on elastic and what to do if you can't find a certain kind of elastic. So please be sure and check that out. So I'm going to turn this down and sew it down, and then I'm going to show you the reason that I'm making this video. Okay, so now we're kind of at this critical part, and this is the reason that I made the video. Once you have this turned and you've top stitched and you've folded this down to make the little pocket for the elastic, then you're going to, in the other video I had you folding these down, and to sew, to make the thing three-dimensional, I had you folding this line up here to this line, or edge, I guess you should say, edge. So I've discovered after making a whole bunch of these that it works just as well if you just make that a zigzag. Okay, I have sewn across here. Let's see if I can point with this. So I started at one side and I sewed straight across that, and I just kept going and I sewed across that. So here it is. This is a more relaxed, one viewer called it fiddly. She said it was kind of fiddly trying to get the edges together up here, and just, I don't know, just after making a whole bunch of these, it just dawned on me that, you know, this could be a little bit more relaxed and less fiddly. But I'm, you know, I wasn't going to do this, and I was just going to, you know, leave it alone and let the video that I already made stand as it was. But then when I heard that we are possibly going to go back to mandatory mask wearing, I thought, oh my goodness, I need to clarify this. And instead of going up like this is what was fiddly. And it kind of was fiddly to get it under the foot of the sewing machine. But if you'll just relax it and go down here and just sew straight across there, I think you will enjoy making these more, and you'll go faster. It'll go faster, and they're just as effective, because here it is. You know, this is what it looks like. Okay, here's the little finished product with this relaxed seam over here. Instead of going up this way, it just goes up this way. Here is the nose wire that's put in. And I also wanted to tell you, one of my friends who's a doctor told me that there are a couple of ways that you can sterilize or sanitize. I guess sanitize is probably the more correct word. You can sanitize your mask while you're out and about by putting it in the dashboard of your car or hanging it from your rear view mirror while you're driving around. Or once you get to your destination, you can mist it with hydrogen peroxide. And I think the ultraviolet light and the hydrogen peroxide will both kill viruses and germs, and so that'll make it a lot healthier for you to be wearing it, taking it off and on during the day. Okie doke. Well, thanks a lot. I love you guys. Bye-bye.